everybody. My guest today is singer and Christian worship leader Casey J, who's sharing her latest single and more with us. But first, Casey J, thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being with us. Now, from a traditional standpoint, many people believe that you do one career really, really well and then you retire. So you were a math teacher, and I come from a family of teachers. You're supposed to go to college, get your degree, teach, and then you retire, but that was not the case for you. So tell us what that looked like. Yeah, tell us what that looked like going
really
from
funny.
full-time math to full-time music.
I think one thing is I've always served in the local church my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can remember, I've just been a part of, or that's been very much a part of who I am. So really what I'm doing now is something that I've really been doing longer than I've been teaching.
Oh, really? Okay.
Absolutely. I've been serving in the church since I was 2 years old.
Okay.
Rehearsal, singing, filling up communion cups.
Yeah.
I've had all kinds of responsibilities. But it's up until probably about 2 or 3 years ago that I really felt that God was going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people, sort of share their testimony and say they were unhappy and all that kind of stuff. And that really was not my life. I think that I'm called to teach.
Okay.
And even now, I'm still teaching. I'm just teaching in a different way.
Yes.
So I was able to transition from doing what I was doing in the classroom, but doing it almost exclusively for the kingdom, if that makes sense.
It does.
So to me, it's pretty much the same thing. I'm just able to do it in different ways and different avenues. But I'm still teaching. I'm just teaching about worship, which is what I was doing before I went to college,
Yes.
before I started thinking about a plan to help me retire, even though it sounds good.
It does. Now, I've been talking about the joys of trusting destiny and stepping out to do the things that God has purposed us to do. And again, I believe that you did just that. So tell us about that point when you knew that it was time for change.
It was probably about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
God had spoke to me even a year and a half before then and said that he wanted to do something special. And just told me that he needed me to give him a yes on the front end, which for a control freak like me was like, no, I can't do it. Tell me what you want and then I'll do it. And so almost 18 months of really living a stagnant life is what I endured because I didn't change my heart. I didn't change my mind. I didn't change the way that I stewarded what God had given me. And so about a year and a half after God gave me that promise is when I decided not to sign my teaching contract again.
Oh, wow.
I moved about an hour and a half away from home, and I literally stayed with friends for 3 months. I had nowhere to stay. I put my stuff in storage. Just said, God, you know what? I'm going to go wherever you desire me to go. And everything else was really set in motion by that one summer. That one time I gave God one yes and moved.
Now that was a hard walk for you, was it not?
Absolutely. I think for me, I'm always a person that I've been working since I was 14 years old. I've always been able to take care of myself. So to have to even go and live with friends was to me such like a move backwards. Yes. And I didn't see God launching me forward in a way that a lot of people can see me now. I couldn't see that then. I really felt almost a sense of defeat, even though I knew I had heard God. So it was definitely me sort of trying to regulate my emotions and regulate my feelings about what I knew God was really doing.
Wow. So what was that like, again, moving from that stable career as an educator to performing your music in front of fans and having the #1 gospel song in the country?
You know what? I think what I'm most grateful for is I've been serving in church for so long. So when I'm able to go and minister in front of thousands of people, it's an extension of what I do as a worship pastor at the church that I still serve at this very moment.
Okay.
And so I don't think of it as having a job of performing. I think of it just as an extension of ministry.
Okay.
And that's really been helpful to just guard my heart against, the type of stuff that comes with industry competition and
absolutely.
backbiting and all that kind of stuff. It's just ministry. And if God said next week, I need you to go be the lady with the highlighter at Walmart, I would go be the lady with the highlighter at Walmart.
Yeah. So what did that look like for you? I mean, tell us about leaving the classroom. What do? You just step out of the classroom and get signed with the label. Tell everybody what that looked like for you.
You make it sound so magical.
I know, wasn't it though?
About about a year and a half ago when we released the song, and I was still working at a school then. I was actually working for a virtual school.
Okay.
So we were recording in the middle of the night,
Wow.
and then I would wake up the next morning like nothing happened and go and continue to teach.
Yes.
And I actually signed with a management company from my brother, my pastor, my homeboy, my everything.
Yes.
Boom. So I signed with him first. That's before we ever did anything with a label. I signed with Marquise Boone Enterprises, which was perfect for me because that's family.
Yes.
So I knew his intention. I knew kind of where we were going. And we just started just rocking that one song. And that's when the record label approached us, that they wanted to partner with what we were already doing.
Yes.
So they didn't come in trying to change anything.
Yes.
And just gave us some extra backing and some extra push, which is where the album that came out in April, that's sort of where that came from, with the partnership with the label.
Okay, gotcha. Now, your story is one that many people, I believe, can relate to. You know, when people are questioning in that transition period, should I stay or should I, do I take that leap and jump into something new? And a lot of people, they stay on their job because they're listening to people saying, you know, it won't work, or they listen to their own, you know, negative self-talk that it won't work. Tell us about some of the challenges or opposition that you faced making that switch.
I think every challenge is in the mind. I genuinely do. I think every challenge is in the mind, because the mind begins to dictate our feelings.
Yes.
The mind begins to dictate the way that we respond to our environment. And I think for a lot of us, and it's for me too, I mean, you know, my family's not ashamed of me saying this, there's nobody in my family that works in full-time ministry.
Oh, really? Okay.
Nobody in my immediate family, no. But everybody in my family has served in church.
Okay.
But it's always been a side thing, or always been, okay, when I get off of work, I'll go and help here.
Yeah.
No one's ever really served full-time in ministry in my immediate family. And so for me, I had not seen it. And so a lot of that is just my mind. My mind wasn't really able to wrap itself around the idea that God would provide directly for me, not through a 9-to-5.
Yes.
Like he would make it happen directly, as opposed to sort of the indirect way that he provides a lot when we have jobs, because it's still his provision. But he would directly provide for me. I really had a hard time cognitively understanding that, and I think every battle starts that way. And once you can get a handle on your mind, I think God can do so much more with you, and everything that he desires to do, he can do, when you allow your mind to be able to understand it.
Yes, when you're open to whatever it is that he has for you, people will be blessed more than they could even imagine if they're just open to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, let's talk about the CD project, which is titled The Truth. Share with our listeners the inspiration behind that project, and for those who haven't heard it yet, what can we expect?
Sure. So the title of the project actually comes from a verse in John chapter 4, which a lot of worship leaders are familiar with, that talks about God seeking those who will worship him in spirit and in truth. And so for me, I got the spirit part. The spirit is the opposite of the flesh.
Yes.
But I had a hard time understanding what the truth was.
Yes.
I just began to study and ask God to reveal that to me, and he revealed that it's when the truth of who he is meets the truth of who we are. So it's kind of a collision of sorts. So every single song on the album either talks about a really direct truth about who God is, or talks about a truth about where we are and our need for him. So on the album, you'll hear Fill Me Up, which everyone's familiar with. I re-recorded it live at the recording.
Yes.
You'll also hear some upbeat things. I don't just sing slow music.
Yes.
So you'll hear some upbeat, awesome, a lot of guitar driven. I'm sort of a hippie flower child. You'll hear a lot of that influence.
Okay.
And it's the first time you'll hear my own writing, because Fill Me Up, although a lot of people think that I wrote it, I did not. Fill Me Up is written by an awesome writer named Will Reagan. But on the album, I wrote about 6 of the 12 songs, so you'll get to hear my writing directly.
Wonderful. What's your favorite?
Oh, who's your favorite kid?
I know, right?
It's the same question. I think for me, they each have such a different story behind them that they all are my favorite in some type of way. I can't choose.
Yeah. What made you go with Fill Me Up? It is a very, beautiful song.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That song actually came out of a worship conference that that my church hosts called Refuel.
Okay.
And it's for worship leaders, singers, dancers, musicians. And we were just sort of looking for a song that would really tie into what we felt God was doing with the conference. So we released "Fill Me Up" just in the conference about 2 or 3 years before I ever thought about recording anything. But that song just sort of grabbed a hold of my heart. And even years later, it was still so much, so relevant to me personally that I just felt like that was a great, first step out into the music industry world.
Wonderful. Now, I know you were talking about being like sort of this flower power child. Is that like, that's your personality, and that's, I love your look, first of all. But yeah, you're very welcome. But tell us about, putting you into your music, and, was there any, I guess, pushback from the industry? Sometimes, we conform to the things that we want, that we think our audience likes. So, was there any of that?
You know what? I feel like I sound like a broken record, but I'm so thankful that I served in my church. I don't have an audience. I have an audience of one. It's great that people are attracted to it. I think that's a fruit or a result of me being obedient.
Yes.
But my goal is that God be pleased.
Yes.
And so I think it's an insult to begin to sort of tweak and tailor and say, oh, I wonder what people will like or whatever. That's an insult to what God put on the inside of me. He made me this way. He knew I wouldn't like shoes. He knew I would like tattoos. He knew I would have all of those sort of affinities. So I wouldn't dare, refuse what he's put on the inside of me to try to make somebody else happy. Yeah,
that's awesome. What do you say to people now who are confused or conflicted about, when do I jump? I think God has given me something to do, but I'm just not sure if this is that time for me. What do you tell them?
I think one thing, and it's different for everybody, because I know that people are called to do, every single person on earth is called to be an answer to one of the world's problems. So there's, a myriad of things that we could be doing. But one thing that I know is true is that God is always looking for servants. So if that's not something that you've really fostered and developed intentionally within yourself, I would start there first.
Gotcha.
Because it doesn't matter what you do, if you don't have the heart of serving, you won't be doing it for very long.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely. So we are actually getting ready to take a listen to KCJ's Fill Me Up. But before we do, guys, I want to hear from you. Join me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter at The Land of Roz. And KCJ, how can everybody stay connected to you?
Well, I'm pretty much the same everywhere on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff, which is at KCJ Music.
Okay.
I also am recently on YouTube, blogging and things like that, so you can find me at KCJ on YouTube as well. But KCJ Music, KCJmusic.com, and you can find me there.
Okay, cool. Well, guys, here is KCJ with Fill Me Up. Had such a great time with you today.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Provide the fire, I'll provide the sacrifice. If you pour out your spirit.
WHJA, Laurel, Ellisburg.
The Dr. Roz Show. It's drive time. You know it's the right time for Dr. Roz. Dr. Roz. Yeah. Welcome to the show. I'm sure by now everybody knows we gon' take some time just to learn and grow. She'll inspire for Jesus. She's on fire. Elevate your life, take you higher. She's here to motivate, empower you, and educate. To try to get you right so your heart don't hate. Don't hate. No, nothing but positive vibes. I'm trying to live a positive life.